Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to our January 28th fire negotiation. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And first, I'd like to recap from the last meeting. We last formally met on December 3rd, and the parties also met on January 8th and January 23rd to execute the extension documents. The January 23rd document was executed virtually due to the weather conditions where we couldn't physically get together. And during that time, the parties agreed to mediation. We are scheduled to meet tomorrow, January 29th, and Thursday, January 30th at 9 a.m. The notices for those meetings have been posted. We're scheduled to go all day at the discretion of negotiation teams and the mediator. And the following items and articles still need to be discussed according to my record. 1, definitions. A, Article 4, management rights, and Article 6, union business, with T8 and a contingent on the adoption of the definitions. 2, Article 7, seniority, promotions, demotions, and transfers. 3, Article 9, maintenance of standards. 4, Article 10, health and safety, which was renamed to department committees. 5, Article 13, vacations and holidays. 6, Article 15, pension. 7, Article 18, additional education pay, renamed to additional pay. And 11, Article 29, wages and the wages table. Today we have with us a mediator. I'd like to introduce our mediator, who's from the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Services, Mr. Leroy Skinner, Jr. And so I'd like to let Mr. Skinner introduce himself and give us some introduction.
Good morning, all. My name is Leroy Skinner, Conciliation Service, FMCS is a small independent federal agency created in 1947 by the Taft Hartley Act. Small. There are less than 200 people in our entire agency, such as myself. The openings were somewhere around 120. There's a federal freeze on, so we're going to be that way for a while. It seems like a big number, but it's a big company. We work in the federal, public, and private sector. I work out of Dallas, Texas hub. In Dallas, Texas hub, I have anything from Texas north of Waco, go across New Mexico, take into Panhandle, come down Interstate 40 to get the Arkansas line, and then take in the 15 most western parishes of Louisiana. Additionally, I have the Wichita, Kansas hub because we're shorthanded. So you take in the rest of Oklahoma, all of Kansas, and anything in Missouri, absolutely greater Kansas City and St. Louis area, and northwest Arkansas. Because I'm an old guy, got gray hair, been out a long time. I'm working out of the Houston hub, Sweetwater Boulevard, because we have a new mediator in the area, which you will hopefully someday meet. So I have the rest of Texas and Western Louisiana. So at any given point,
Recorded.
My nature is to shy away from microphones. She had shown me how to turn it around. I always like to think my voice carries. FMCS, what I'm here to do is assist the parties as much or as little as they want.
Issues.
I think we were stuck on the articles. That's why we requested the mediation. I don't know if we want to split up into caucus.
Could we do that? Can we take a break and each party tell me where you believe you're at?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Meet with the parties. How long I meet with the parties?
Mr. Skinner, I'm sorry to interrupt, but because it is being recorded, I do need you to use your mic. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I apologize. You have told me that and I forget. When I meet with the parties, how long I meet with the parties, who I meet with first, please give no inference to that. Because I don't know yet until I figure out where we're at. Okay? what I'd like to do is meet with one party, see where they're at, and meet with the other party, see where they're at, and then I'll better be able to know if or how I can help. Fair enough?
Before we break to caucus, previously we were meeting on the first floor and there's quite a bit of distance between the rooms. Would the union be opposed to meeting upstairs in the manager's conference room? There's two. So that way the mediator could move between the spaces evenly?
Yes, I'm not opposed to that.
That's fine.
Okay.
That'll work.
I'll need a point of contact for each party. So, hey, something quick I can write down here and just call or text that, hey, I'm coming into your room, or
Okay,
so
I'll give you,
give me a number that I can.
okay. And thanks for that clarity. You know, as we begin this, we're learning how you work with this process, so thank you.
You will find I'm extremely informal, sir. Mediation is an informal process. That's the joy of you talk freely with me.
So we'll recess into caucus.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I apologize. I thought we were gonna meet back upstairs.
Oh, okay, no problem, we're here. Well, we'll reconvene the meeting of the January 28th fire negotiations. We've had the opportunity to caucus, and Commissioner Skinner has been working with us, so I'm gonna turn it over to Commissioner Skinner and dictators.
Thank you. I've met with both parties. With the parties' indulgence, I think the best thing is to start at the top of our list that we stated this morning. City manager went down the list. I met with the parties to talk about this list individually caucus. We've not met together until we're back here. So let's start with definitions. It's my understanding that there's some definitions we can agree to and some we have concern with. Let's narrow our scope so that we know exactly what we're dealing with or where we at on definitions.
Commissioner, would you make sure you put the microphone over? It's because we're recording. We want to make sure we get it all.
It has a good range, as long as it's right in front of you.
Okay. Definitions.
The first one, I guess we'll go down the list. Bargaining unit. There was an issue with that one.
sir?
Yes, sir. Oh, bargaining unit. We had an issue with that definition?
Issue, okay. Help me understand what the issue is.
We should believe this unnecessary language to the contract. The contract has clearly defined what the bargaining unit is. We don't really feel like there's any need for any definition to that.
All right. What's the next one?
The next one was benefit.
You understand what the issue there?
That one is just simply, we don't agree with that definition.
Do you have a counter definition that you would agree with, or what would you like to do with that?
I don't think it's necessary, I don't think it's necessary to have a definition to that. Unless the intent is to circumvent the maintenance of standards clause, which is what we've already had a conversation on.
All right. What's the next one?
Calendar day.
Help me understand the issue.
I get just unnecessary term. I mean, to put in there, I believe everyone knows what a calendar day is. Don't really see any benefit or anything to put that in there. Just seems unnecessary.
All right. What's the next one?
Communications personnel.
I can say that for one, communications personnel, the way it's defined in in this proposed definition is inaccurate anyway. We have two supervisory personnel in the communications division that work a 10-hour shift, not a 12-hour shift.
Do you have a counter, or want to remove it? Help me
We
understand what-
potentially could. We can work on that.
We'll have a counter.
What's next?
Employee.
What is our issue with the employee definition?
It brings in the term bargaining unit again, which, like I said before, is clearly defined in the contract. It, again, is more unnecessary language. Everyone knows what an employee is. No need to add that in there. I believe there could also, we're just somewhat worried that this could interfere, or that there's some intent behind interfering with the litigation that's going on and our employees in the bargaining unit with some of these definitions. So, again, I don't have a counter for that. We just would like it struck.
All right.
I go ahead and say that it's the same thing for fire suppression personnel. Oh, I'm sorry, for fire department is next.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Don't get in front of me.
Yeah, sorry about that.
What's next?
Fire department.
There we go. We had skipped.
I got you. Yes, sir. I noticed it. Sorry about that.
What's the issue with the definition of fire department?
I guess same thing. Same thing. This is language that doesn't need to be in the contract.
Why? Help me understand why.
Self-explanatory.
I don't work here, so
Right.
you kind of got to explain things to me.
Right. Again, when we talk about the fire department, I think everyone's pretty clear on what we're talking about. When we talk about the fire department, it brings up more about litigation. There's been some instances where it's been claimed that EMS is not part of the department, and it is part of the department. Been a lot of back and forth on that with the city. I believe it feels to us on this side that this is some sort of a way that could interfere with the current litigation as well.
Okay, what's next?
Fire suppression,
What's our issue with the definition of fire suppression?
same thing. Not to, do you need me to fully explain again? More information that's excessive doesn't need to be in there. We know who fire suppression people are. We're worried with some of these terms that they're going to interfere with litigation, that could be the intent behind there. If it's not the intent, then we don't see the purpose of adding those definitions.
Okay, what's next?
The next one is the labor agreement.
What's our issue with the definition of a labor agreement?
I think we could probably be okay with that one.
So you would move that we,
Yeah, I would say that,
understand.
yes, we could be okay with accepting that definition.
So labor agreement, you're okay with the definition as is, and we can check mark that.
Yes, sir.
City, are you okay with that check mark? It's your proposal, but. I will mark that.
Hold on just a second.
Any movement's movement. Good job.
On the labor agreement definition, has local 571, that would have to be local 399.
Okay, the one that I have this morning has 399 on it.
Up there, she's showing.
I did not even know that was going on behind me. Okay, so we can consider a labor agreement, that definition of tentative agreement. What's next?
We are at shift. Same thing that's been in my last explanations, that, you know, we know what shifts are, but we believe the way that this is listed out, it could have interference with the current litigation as well. There's been back and forth between the city during this lawsuit that this could bring confusion to. And so we just want to strike that from the list as well.
Okay, what's next?
Next on the list is union business. We'd had some discussion about this at one of our last meetings. I believe it may have been the last meeting. And we are okay with this language, and I believe the city agreed that we were, with striking and representing members of the bargaining unit in disciplinary actions. I believe we discussed that. So the definition would read: investigating and processing grievances, attending civil service meetings, arbitrations, or court hearings related to grievances, as a definition of union business. And if that is still, if the city is still agreeable to that, then we are okay with that definition as well.
Essentially put a period after the word grievances, where there's a comma.
Yes, sir.
City, do you want to respond or wait and consider that?
We're checking our copies.
Okay. All right, so it's my understanding, absent those that we just called out, every other definition is acceptable.
Yes, sir.
And on that, we'll wait on the city. You're under no obligation to respond right now. You know where we're at. That's what we're trying to do right now, is help me figure out where we're at. Article 7 was the next thing that was mentioned this morning that I discussed with the parties.
I think Mr. Williams's list had management rights as Article 4, correct? For discussion?
That's, I have it as Article 4, management rights.
My mistake.
Our notes say that management rights is TA'd with the removal of the word full with the adoption of the definitions.
We were in agreement. I had it checked on our list. I must have missed that. Maybe we didn't finally agree to that, but we're in agreement with the definition of management rights so that we could, if that's the case, we could potentially be T8 on that.
So we've actually already TA'd it. It was TA'd with the adoption of the definition. So it's a tentative TA with the adoption of the definition. I believe the only one, like union business has the same note. It's TA'd tentatively with the adoption of the union business definition.
The definitions as a whole or just those specific definitions?
Specifically, it says with the adoption of union business definition.
Okay.
All right. So we know where we're at on Article 4. Once we get definitions worked out, we're done with Article 4 additionally. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, that is.
Would that take us to Article 7 then?
Yes, sir.
Whose proposal was Article 7?
That was a city proposal.
Labor, where are you at with Article 7, city's proposal?
We're remaining with our previous counter
Which was?
to add the parameter of requiring 300 the department to reach 300 personnel before the second assistant chief is added, and making that position tested.
Okay. City? If I refer to you as management or city, it's the same person. You know, labor and management's just easy common terms.
We understand. We answer.
I don't mean any disrespect.
We could discuss it, but I don't think we want to accept their proposal.
Article 9.
That's maintenance of standards. I guess our counter was keep the current language currently in the agreement, in the existing agreement.
And the city was fine to do that, but we would be eliminating the operational guidelines committee from the proposal.
Help me understand what
Could
that
you-
means, because I see confusion on the other side.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. If you could, this was the first time of us hearing that as a counter, so I just want to make sure I heard correct.
So the operational guidelines committee allows for union or union members to participate in the creation or policy discussions. In a previous arbitration, the union argued that employees who participated in policy drafting or policy amendments were bargaining outside of the contract. So if we eliminated the language, we would also be eliminating that from the contract as well.
We'll discuss that in caucus.
But you understand what she's saying? To make sure. Management's okay with going back to current language, that it has repercussions because of a previous arbitration.
Sir.
Article 10.
Article 10 is health and safety. I think the discussion or the issue was the committee and the makeup of the committee.
All right, what's your issue with the makeup of the committee?
We had a lot of discussion on this. I don't recall where we left off on it. I think the only issue with the Health and Safety Committee that we had left was just discussing keeping it a true joint committee and having an even number of, personnel on the city side and the union side. Having the assistant chief as the chair. We discussed that for a while, and the assistant chief, I think if I remember right, would essentially just be there to take minutes.
That's what the definition says.
So I guess we just kind of ended up wondering why you would need the assistant chief to take minutes in a committee meeting. He's got a secretary that could do that. If we're trying to keep it even on both sides, keep the true intent of the committee in place. So that was the only thing we had left on the committees. And then the other, right, yeah, the other thing that we, I think we're really kind of in agreement with, but never got to an end to it, but the random drug testing policy, we were fine with that. We just wanted to make sure that we got, see, attached addendum X, so make sure that there's some sort of an addendum that lays out the program and that the program is done properly. I think that's the only issue that we had left to finalize.
It's my understanding that you had submitted a sample or an example.
That's correct.
So there is also, just so you can see it, the city's changes are in red. The union's proposed changes are in blue. None of these have been adopted. So the union wanted to propose that everyone be compensated. The city's not in agreement with that.
You're saying that you want our members to attend department business but not be paid?
That's currently what happens.
I understand, but I believe it's come to our attention that may not be legal, that under fair labor standards, that an employee that's at work must get paid.
That's not work.
That is something.
That's union business.
I'm just curious. I think in our last meeting, when we talked about this article, there was no issue with that.
That's not true.
I want to bring up too that it's not strictly union business. This is a joint committee, so it's work for the city. It benefits both sides.
What's the current contract language?
Time spent in committee meetings. Yeah.
Like Ms. Reed said.
The
it's,
current language says time and committees will not be compensated. If you just look at the black language, that's what it is. It says time spent in committee meetings by the union representatives while off duty shall not be compensated. That was the original language.
Right. So the issue that we see with that now, looking back at this, is that the city is appointing union bargaining unit members to that committee as well. The city is picking members who will be paid on duty or off duty to participate in those meetings, but the bargaining unit members that the local is appointing are not getting paid. So we just don't see that as fair and equal treatment to our bargaining unit members.
All right, now help me understand. Sometimes when I hear multiple things, I got old ears, so I have to ask clarifying questions. Is your issue that you're worried it's a Fair Labor Standards Act and your labor agreement's been in violation, or your issue is disparate treatment?
Both, but primarily I would say fair treatment because I'm unsure on the Fair Labor Standards. It was brought up to me. I'm unsure on that. We could ask the council that's in the room, the legal counsel that's in the room, if they wanted to find something out on that. But more than anything, it's that it's unfair to our bargaining unit members that some bargaining unit members are paid off duty to attend these meetings, but other bargaining unit members are not paid to attend these meetings.
Happy to jump in on that. Not giving legal advice, but if an employee is directed by their employer to do something that's job related, they're required by law to be paid for it. If a member of the bargaining unit is asked by their elected representative to do something, that's called volunteering, and that's not the same.
Okay. I think we agree to disagree.
While FMCS, we don't give legal advice on this subject, you might want to talk to your counsel, okay?
Yeah, we'll discuss this in caucus.
All right. But the second part, the random drug screen policy. I understood before we got off on the committee makeup that you had submitted one and in principle, we're okay?
Yes, in principle, we'll need to hammer out the language, but I don't think, in principle, we're all good.
Yeah, we didn't have any issues with the one that they proposed, and we were ready to agree to that, but, so I'm not sure what language needs to be hammered out still.
I guess just putting it together the way it would look in the article.
Okay.
It would just be attached, so that the regular format is fine. We would just attach it as an addendum, so it'll just say Appendix
We'll make,
B, random drug screen
Will be-
policy.
the appendix will have the actual, I guess, policy and the actual
Yes, sir.
random drug testing requirements or, I mean, we'll spell it out in the appendix.
Yes, sir.
We can work on that.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be, it'd be incorporated into the document.
Correct, as an appendix.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Using a mediator's flexibility, when can we expect to see that document?
I'll get started on it.
There we go. Rapidly towards the end, we don't leave nothing hanging out.
Yes, sir.
Progress. All right. What's our next article? Article 13?
Vacation and holidays. 13, yes, sir.
It's my understanding, if I'm wrong, parties need to correct me. Your issue here has to do with scheduling around Juneteenth.
No, sir.
All right, help me understand.
The first issue in this article was that the city proposed that, I'm sorry, I lost track. Sorry, give me just 1 second, I apologize.
This had to do with section B under, well, I guess subsection B under section 2. The change from if manpower permits, an employee may, upon his request, basically, if manpower permits, the employee can request vacation with the approval of the deputy chief. The change.
The change eliminates the requirement that they take a full shift for vacation. The language is the same. The
Okay,
original,
we talked about that
the
then.
ori-
Yeah, you
the
changed.
original language says if manpower permits, an employee may, upon his request, take 2 vacation days, 1 shift with the approval of the deputy chief. We changed it to if manpower permits, an employee may take vacation with the approval of the deputy chief because we added that we wanted to take vacation in one half shift. So up to 12 hours as opposed to taking a full.
Right, I'm remembering now. Yeah, and then we had some discussion over changing the 12 hours to 6 hours.
Yes. And we discussed that that would be amenable if we stayed at the beginning or end of the shift.
So the only issue with staying at the beginning or the end of the shift was 6 hours is that puts somebody taking vacation at 2 a.m.
Exactly, which is why we would prefer that it be 12-hour block.
Right.
Filling a blank in the middle of the day, it's harder. So,
We would
which
just
is why we
counter-
wanted to stay with a one half shift or 12-hour block.
Okay. We could just do away with the beginning or the end of the shift and stick with 6 hours.
So we talked about that as well. And if you recall, that was one of the problems that we had. And we kind of, I guess, like solved that with the temporary upgrades issue by saying that the schedule wouldn't be changed, but it would like impact some of that. So it's just easier to fill vacancies at the beginning of the end of the shift as opposed to in the middle.
Yeah, it just takes a lot of the flexibility away from our members being able to take vacation in smaller increments for more minor issues than they would take a whole shift or a half a shift. But we can discuss that and maybe come back to that, see where we get with some of these other items.
All right. What's our next issue? As I see it, we got two issues there. 6 and 12 and when you're gonna take them.
Yes, sir.
All right. Understanding, and I'm not taking a position. For the city, it's about scheduling, while for you, it's your personal life and scheduling. For them, it's about scheduling, having someone just come in the middle of a day, which is a greater economic harm. All right. What's our next issue?
Next one would be pension, Article 15. The next article is pension.
The only reason we're stuck on this is because of the proposed language addition to the recognition clause, which we weren't interested in adding.
So again, it goes back to the original statement. You have firefighters who are serving on your pension board. If they negotiated with the city, they would essentially be negotiating for benefits outside of the contract, outside of the bargaining unit.
Yeah, we
So there needs
disagreed
to
on
be
that.
some, you could disagree, but it's a fact. Like you do
Not a
have,
fact.
you do have members serving on the pension board who are firefighters.
Right.
And
But they're doing their job as a pension board member for that fund.
exactly,
So
which
it's
is a,
completely separate from,
which is a,
our union.
which is a benefit to the members of the union. And the recognition clause specifically says that y'all are the primary bargaining unit on behalf of firefighters. So like you can split it any way you want, but we have to reword that to recognize that you're going to allow another group to bargain for at least that singular benefit on behalf of the membership.
They're not bargaining for the members. They're going by the pension board works along with the state. We could have our pension chair here. You may be able to do a better job, or a former pension chair here and maybe able to do a better job. But the pension, the way this functions is with the pension board, who the city and the firefighters have positions on, they report to the state. That plan has to be done by the state. Actuaries come in and give suggestions on how that works. That actuary gets presented to the members of the pension plan, not to the members of Local 399. So I do think there's a lot of confusion in that issue, and it's my understanding that you guys have been invited to go before the PRB next month. And I think there could be a lot of clarity come from that meeting whenever, hopefully you guys attend that meeting and go before the PRB to resolve that issue. But Local 399 has no standing in the pension.
I think the key word was clarity. Because in the existing, well, the contract that just lapsed, those conditions were identified in the contract about pension and percentages the city would pay and how that would work. You're proposing to take that out of this contract altogether, and you're delegating it to someone else. So I think there needs to be some clarity on who and why is going to do that, because, you know, a lot of the grievances are that we are negotiating or doing with your members outside of your responsibility. And I've seen several grievances come across my desk for that. So I think this just clearly identifies how this is going to work. There's no ulterior motive. It just simplifies and clarifies how this process works.
And I'd like to understand too, if your position is they're not bargaining for the local 399 on the board, then why can't we say that in the contract? I mean, essentially, we're wanting to kind of codify in the contract what you just said is actually the case.
I think that we're good with the language. We agree that we should be not subject to contract negotiations. Our issue is changing the recognition clause. That's what our issue is.
You're accomplishing what you're wanting to accomplish with that sentence there. Is that not correct? You just want to make sure that there's language in there that says that we're not negotiating for the pension?
So removing this language that says that the pension contribution shall not be subject to contract negotiations, that just codifies that we won't talk about it anymore here. The language in the recognition clause essentially establishes that the union will allow a separate entity to essentially, whether you want to say discuss, bargain, however you want to do it, those that benefit on behalf of their membership. In the past, the pension board has presented their proposal to the union, and the union has discussed it with the city in contract negotiations. Although we have employees who work on and attend those meetings on both sides, and the actuaries, and we participate with the state, those agreements in terms of what the city is contractually obligated to do and what employees are contractually obligated to do has always been ratified in the contract document. So there was never a question as to who was going to negotiate or how those terms came about. We're moving it from the contract document now and having someone else do it. At some point, you are going to have to bring it back to your membership in a separate document if we are negotiating directly with the pension board. In a separate document, there's going to have to be a understanding that the membership knows that if, for whatever reason, the pension board says, hey, we need to increase the membership benefit, it's going to have to be codified by your department. You can't do that unilaterally. If the city wants to reduce its benefits in the contract, it's still going to have to be ratified by council. So removing it from the contract doesn't alleviate the responsibility for either party to make sure that the individuals that they represent are aware of the change. So it is in some form a representation, and so it needs to be recognized that the union is relinquishing that authority to the union board.
I disagree with you. I don't know how many more times we can go over this, but this union board has no authority over the pension. This
I didn't say-
pension is
I didn't
these
say you had
pension issues.
authority.
I'm sorry. I'm
Didn't say you
sorry.
had
I'm
authority, so
sorry.
you're
Please. I'm sorry. Please.
All right.
This issue needs to be resolved with the pension board and the state. I have no authority over the pension. There seems to be great confusion over the fact that we have a union membership and a pension membership. They're not the same. I realize they're made up of the same people, but they're two separate organizations. I don't have the authority to change matters on that. So my recommendation is to work with the state, the city and the pension board work together and present their plan to the state. That's how this comes to be. The pension members will vote to move forward with that, not the executive board.
If there's any confusion, it's yours, but I think we've exhausted that.
I'll come back to that. I may have a suggestion, but we have a lot on our list. What's next?
Education pay,
Article,
it's Article 18.
what's our issue with education?
I think we had a counter, right, Cody?
So that article was renamed to additional pay, and it combines certification pay, education pay, and incentive pay. At the last meeting, the union proposed to strike the following language and will receive either education or certification pay, whichever is higher.
What's your issue with their proposal?
The city doesn't believe that that's feasible, and that's not traditionally how it's been done. We've increased certification and credential pay, and so we feel like that's the extent that we're willing to do.
So, and will receive either education pay or certification pay as current contract language,
Yes, sir.
and laborers wanting to strike that? Help me understand why.
Because they're two separate things, for one, separating them makes both valuable. And what I mean by that is, if you have education pay in place, or rather, I'll start with the certification pay. You have the certification pay in place, you top out at $150 per month for the master firefighter. If you have a bachelor's degree, that's $200 per month, so it's more than the master firefighter. So if you have a bachelor's degree and you don't have the master certification, you could potentially get the master, but it's not going to give you anything. So there's a lot of value in those, in both of those, and it just puts actual value separate to each one. We believe that they're both very important, and they represent good, how do I do that? I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Anyhow, I think I've said it. I lost my train of thought.
If I can make sure I frame this correctly, your issue with that language is it limits how much you can earn. A lot of words, but
Correct.
that's what I believe I heard. How much? When I say it's how much, how often is it used? What's the economic impact? Because this is current contract language, so help me understand the economic impact.
I don't have that information. We propose the separation to the city. I assume that the city may have pulled that information to make a decision on not to move forward with that.
Well, I thought it was your proposal to remove the current contract language.
It was our last counter to separate the two.
Okay. That's something certainly, in order to help, I need to understand what's the economic impact of your proposal. What's next?
Wages.
Hours and overtime.
Hours and overtime, Article 23.
That wasn't on the agenda, Mr. Williams
Oh.
showed me, so we didn't discuss it. We can throw it on there and talk about it at caucus.
No, if you're fine with it, then we're fine with it.
We're fine with right now.
You hold off on that for now? Okay.
Yes.
Then the last thing on your list was wages.
All right. If I understand it, we're at help me understand where we're at. Either party.
In the simplest form, we presented our proposal to the city, which was 4 years, 24% over a 4-year period. It was a 7.575. I should have this stuff sitting in front of me, but I don't. We didn't get any return back from the city. The city stayed with their original 16%. We came back and offered a counter with no response back from the city, and we've come back and offered a second counter. We now sit at 22% over 4 years, and the city is still currently at 16% over 4 years.
Help me understand how you divide your 22. And I'm going to ask the other question so you know how they divide their 16, but how you divide your 22.
Honestly, I don't believe we've discussed that right now, that I think it's up in the air
Right.
on how we would split it.
Why I asked that question? How do we figure the economic impact
Yes, sir.
of today's cost?
Yes, sir.
And the cost from 4 years from now? That's why I asked that question.
Yes, sir.
All right. City?
And my note might be different. I think I wrote down 7555 to get to that 22. Is that correct?
If you give me a second, I can find it.
Okay. And I forget your first counter. I can't remember what your first counter. I remember you going to the 22, but I don't know what the first counter was. So I'd like to hear that. The city has countered. You know, we started out giving 4, 2, 2, 4, with 2% going into a pension. And we came back and counted. We said we'll take the 2% going into the pension and put it into wages. So we have countered their proposal. And along with looking at the different incentives, et cetera, we've counted and moved our initial proposal with them.
I heard they didn't counter and they say they didn't. So do you understand their counter, where we're at?
Yes, sir.
So
Mr. Williams, if, maybe I'm remembering wrong, it's been a while since we've been in here, but I think when you guys came back with the 16%, but doing away with the pension contributions, I was thinking that it was after that we countered with the 22%. Did I have that backwards?
No, I wasn't addressing the timing of it. I was just saying that it happened, but I was saying that we did counter from our initial proposal, without a doubt. So we've countered.
for clarity, he was addressing that the city hadn't moved, the statement that Labor made that the city hadn't moved. He was addressing it.
Understood.
All right. Not when they moved or anything else other than that simple statement that we made a proposal, city made a proposal, they hadn't moved off of it. He was
I did ask the question, when did you move? You said you moved twice. I remember the 22. I can't remember the other one.
Yeah, the first time we came down to 23 and a quarter.
Oh,
we
okay.
came down to
Okay, now I remember, yeah.
All right, do we have any other open issues? Here's why, although you know all the legal stuff, that you have the right to add to, take away, amend, put all that aside. Let's narrow the scope. So every time we come, we know exactly where we're at because we're rapidly approaching time to make tough decisions. We need to remember where we're at and take things off the table or agree to things. Or know where we're going to end up. Are there any other things that, if nothing else, I need to know about to assist the parties with? You still have all your other rights. Please don't think I'm saying that I'm taking away that language to add to or amend or anything else like that. I'm just trying to get my hand around how to better help the parties.
And hours and overtime pay was still outstanding, correct?
What article is that?
That's Article 23.
No, it's fine. It's not. It was T8.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay.
So can I mark 23 off or no?
Yeah, I guess we'd have to refresh our memory. I still show it. Was
It
a
was-
question mark?
It was T8 on the December 11th meeting.
Okay. I think we've addressed everything that's outstanding, correct?
Then I suggest that we take a short break. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage the parties to have a tough decision about what we want to do next. Do we want to caucus or do we want to go back and say, here's the movements I can make on, start from the top? How do you guys normally run it? I don't want to upset your apple cart any more than I have to. Would a 15-minute break be in order?
It depends on what we're gonna do. If we're just taking a break, 15 minutes is adequate. If we're gonna caucus, we need
Just the break.
15 minutes is
We will decide after the break what we want to do.
great.
That allows you also with the break, a bio break, to talk to your parties about what we want to do,
Okay, great.
all right, off the record. I have it says 2:29, but we're gonna call it 2:30, call it 16 minutes. All right, are we all ready?
Yes, we're ready. We'll call the meeting back to order and we'll
I had
go to
the-
you.
I had the opportunity to meet with both parties. Thank you for the caucus. Talked about what movement, if any, based on our last conversation, and that's where we're at, to have a discussion, see if there's an opportunity to continue to work on our list. City, let's start with you this time. What I'm gonna do in no particular order, unless you have an order, let me know, is start at the top of the list. Definitions.
We have an order we like to follow if it's okay. Okay, thanks.
Are we,
I'll switch to the pension.
okay.
We wanted to just come back to the pension, and I think where we left it was that the union would agree to the language that's up there now, that the parties agree, pension contributions shall not be subject to contract negotiations. Did I understand y'all agree to that?
Correct.
Okay. And I think, Mr. Neeson, you said that the union's position is discussions and participation in the pension board are not an act of bargaining on behalf of the union. Is that right? So with that understanding, we would agree to have the language as it's reflected on the screen right now and not pursue the change to the recognition article that we had previously discussed.
Labor, do you need to talk about that, or are you willing to accept that proposal as is and make the changes?
That's
We are
we're
good.
We're all good.
All right. Help me understand how we codify that. How do we do our TAs?
I think we'd been
At
printing
the
them.
next meeting, we'll have the document prepared for them to sign off on.
For review and then we formalize it.
My goal is just to make sure it's formalized so that we don't revisit it again.
Yes, sir.
Agree.
Now, we can do this one of two ways. They spoke, do you want to speak, or do you want to, you choose to go ahead and go through your list? I'm good either way.
I can speak.
Yeah.
We discussed, we're good with your counter on the vacations and holiday proposal following the 11/12/24 meeting.
All right,
We're good to TA on that.
let's make sure we all understand what we're agreeing to here, Joe.
Yes, we discussed the change in the language about with manpower permits, vacation approval shall be at the discretion of the deputy chief. Is that correct?
I'm pulling it up, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So these are the changes.
Good.
Okay.
That's correct.
Now, help me understand what article that was in.
That's Article 13.
Does that take care of Article 13 in its entirety, all open proposals?
Yes, sir.
City?
And Joe, y'all are agreeing to the time being taken at the beginning or end of the shift? That was the
Correct.
other change. Okay.
And then Juneteenth has been added as a holiday, correct?
Yes,
That's right.
sir.
The list? Okay. Then we're good.
Yeah.
That's everything on that article.
What I'm gonna do then is, I'm gonna grin real big and mark Article 13 off, because I don't have to visit that again. Good job, parties. All right, that puts the proverbial ball back in the city's court.
In that case, we'll move to definitions. The city will agree to remove bargaining unit, calendar days,
Slow down so that I can keep up. Bargaining unit and calendar days.
bargaining unit, calendar days, employee, and fire department.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I wasn't looking, so when I heard department, I'm waiting to see if there's another word to follow. So under definitions, that would leave the points in dispute would be communications personnel.
We emailed over a definition counter on the communication personnel.
It didn't send.
Okay.
I have it here. But we do have a counter on the communications personnel and the committee chair. And I can email it to you so you can,
Review it.
yeah. Sorry about that.
Make sure whatever you email back and forth, you copy me.
Got you.
I say that out loud, not because I don't think you would, but it's not been your habit so far. So there's a new player in the game.
Yes, sir.
The only other change that we would make is to union business. We're willing to add the following language that
Give me an article.
we're still in definitions on union business. It's on your screen. We'll be adding proposing adding the following language that this will not prohibit union stewards who are on duty from representing members of the bargaining unit in disciplinary actions. It's not up there. I didn't add it. It's part of the working document, but the language.
Just read the definition.
So with the language, it would say investigating and processing grievances, attending civil service meetings, arbitrations, or court hearings related to grievances, and representing members of the bargaining unit in disciplinary actions. And it would go on to say,
That,
it shall not prohibit union stewards who are on duty from representing members of the bargaining unit in disciplinary actions. The reason for that is if you look at the article relevant to union business, and I'll pull it up so you can see it. It specifically says the union president or his designee shall be granted reasonable time off during working hours to attend to union business, provided that the president or his designee shall request permission from the fire chief or his absence, his designee, such permission shall not be withheld except for in emergencies. Adding that language would allow for union stewards to still essentially attend to union business as it relates to disciplinary actions while on duty.
Trey, didn't we add something to the last section in this article that specifies that? Well, maybe up just a little bit? Because I feel like I remember us having this conversation. Yeah, employees shall be entitled to receive union representation at any meeting. I was thinking that green
Yeah.
added language was for this purpose. I'm not.
I thought so as well, but I guess it was when we heard that you wanted to strike out that last part, we just felt like we could clarify it with definitions if it doesn't solve that part.
if I'm not mistaken, that's when that came up, was when we struck that part. That's why we added it.
So I don't recall us striking it from the definition section. I just recall us adding this part. Because we took out all of this because it was already in the union business definition, and then we added this part.
So are you wanting to add basically kind of similar language to that to
To
other section two?
to the definition section, just so that it's clear that,
To the, okay.
yes, sir.
Yeah, we could be agreeable to that.
I'll just go ahead and type it out if that's okay.
Okay.
Type when people are watching.
My screen went blank, but I didn't touch anything.
It's me. I can't type when people are watching. I get nervous. This is what it looks like. This shall not prohibit a union steward from representing a member of the bargaining unit in a disciplinary action while the union steward is on duty.
Thank you.
And we would invite the union to provide suitable definitions for fire suppression. And I guess you said you're emailing one for the committee chair and communications personnel.
That's correct.
Okay.
We'll have to have some time on working something for fire suppression.
Yes, sir.
Help me understand what have some time means.
By tomorrow?
Good night. Whatever the definition is, I just want to understand, not to look for it in 30 seconds. There we go. In my world, clarity is best. All right, anything else, City? Or do you want to pass the ball?
We're going to, he's typing up our proposal definitions for communications personnel and committee chair. We're going to have those in just a second, if we have just a second.
From Cody Hendon? Okay.
Cody, do you have it on the flash drive that we gave you? I'm trying to pull up my email here. It pulled up. Just it's okay. It pulled up. Yeah, we'll just. It's being funny for a minute. I'm just going to copy and paste it into a Word document.
labor look and make sure that's exactly, do your own proofing.
Okay, help me out here. That looks pretty much exactly like what's in the definitions already. On the, with the committee chair, for starters.
Are you saying that what we have there is what's already in the definitions?
I mean, it's a little, the words are a little reordered, but yes, substantively, it looks the same.
Okay,
Which
then
I
we're
mean-
good.
Okay.
Yeah, it literally, it's the same. On communications personnel, the sentence regarding the assistant chief of communication and the assistant communications officer, wouldn't that definition apply under day personnel? Because that's what we have is a firefighter assigned to a shift consisting of 5 8-hour days or 4 10-hour days, which was not one that the union flagged.
Right, hypothetically, but communications personnel is specific to the communications office, and day personnel covers the planning division, the logistics division, and, I mean, it covers all areas of the headquarters. So communications is specific, so if we're gonna define communications personnel, that was kind of our only thing, is we needed to define all of them.
So if it said a firefighter assigned to a shift consisting of 12 hours, alternating between days, nights, and days, and a firefighter assigned to 4 10-hour days, that would be sufficient. We're eliminating the word shift since that was taken out of the contract definitions.
I mean, you could
I
just
can- we-
say
we can obvi- we
alternating
can
between
obviously leave
nights
it-
and days.
Yeah, we can obviously leave it in, but I'm just proposing that we take the language that we, from that as it's worded in day personnel and just add it and merge it up to the communications personnel, just taking out in addition to the assistant communications chief and just leaving it as an individual or a firefighter.
I'll be honest with you, that language for the communications personnel is what it specifically says in the article. So I mean, it's already in the contract anyway, so this is really kind of, I'm really not trying to be sarcastic at all, but it is pointless to begin with. But if you're
Okay.
wanting to merge two things, if you want to type it out so that we can see what you're talking about, then, I mean, that's fine. But
No, firefighter is actually 2 words, but other than that, it's fine.
With the typo, let's fix the typo while we're.
I have to deal with it all day, Cody. Just don't take it personal.
Let's fix the typo while we're looking at it. Is this something we can agree to? And the words.
We'll accept,
Well, it was your proposal till they changed the word, and then the onus goes back to you.
That's
so
fine.
the only problem we have with the committee chair is that it limits it to the Health and Safety Committee. We had the definition as it relates to that entire, there's a committee chair in the operational guidelines as well. So we would like the committee chair definition that the city proposed to remain the same. So we'll adopt the definition of communications personnel and propose that the committee chair definition proposed by the city stays the same. Since they're relatively the same, it just eliminates.
I think we
committee.
misunderstood. I was thinking that y'all said y'all were taking the operational guidelines committee out.
We said we would if it was contingent on participants, but we would eliminate the entire section. So we would eliminate Health and Safety Committee as well as Operational Guidelines Committee, both.
Oh, you're saying you would eliminate both committees?
Yes.
That's a whole different conversation.
Well, they're not now. We're talking about what we gotta do to keep them.
But we're not interested in eliminating the Health and Safety Committee for sure.
Yeah, I thought the discussion was on the maintenance of standards. You said you'd stay with original language if we agreed to eliminate the operational.
No, we said we would eliminate both.
Oh,
Because-
I didn't catch that.
Because, and it wasn't on the maintenance of standards, it was on them wanting pay for members participating. So members also participate on the Health and Safety Committee as well. And they would want pay for those committee members as well. So we would eliminate both committees.
I think we understood something very different, so that changes the
That's why
whole
we have these
conversation.
discussions, to make sure what we understand. Help me understand that we're okay with that, what you just highlighted.
We are okay with the communications personnel
Okay, now let's
definition.
talk about committee chair, what we need to do to be okay, both parties, with committee chair.
So your position is to leave both committees in place, but not pay the members that are representing the union on those committees during their time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right, yeah. I think if the union folks are volunteering to attend a committee, then yes, would be off-duty and not paid.
Okay. I think since there was a lot of confusion on that, maybe could we just revisit that one tomorrow? Give us a chance to talk about it a little bit more.
Talk about some more, but what's your current contract language?
Says
We
they're
don't-
not paid.
We don't have an organizational, we don't have that committee as of right now. The only committee that we have right now is the Health and Safety Committee.
They're not paid for that one.
Right.
Correct. Yes, is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, the city's appointees are paid, the union's appointees are not.
not paid by the city.
Correct.
Okay. We got one, we'll address the other one tomorrow. All right. Anything else? Because I'm gonna push, as long as I can push.
Just to be clear, I took out the S on firefighters. So it just says a firefighter. So it's consistent with the other sections.
You okay with that change?
So I said, to make it consistent with the other, it'll say a firefighter instead of firefighters. It says a firefighter assigned to a 12-hour shift alternating. No, I'm just telling you that I did it.
Are you okay with that? Yes. Okay. Anytime one party or the other alternates your proposal, I don't care if it's a comma, I'm typically gonna, if I catch it, I'm gonna ask, are you okay with that change? So that you go. All right, Now, what else we got?
I think that's all we have from our last discussion.
Thank you. The movement may be seem minuscule, but once we start moving, moving becomes easier. For too long, we're down to the nuts and bolts where the really tough decisions have to be made. I appreciate the parties engaging in the dialogue and engaging with me. I think 4:30 was our end time. It's 4:18 or 4:17, depending on which clock I look at. Parties okay concluding? Before we conclude,
Yes, sir.
I would challenge the parties, encourage the parties, I will make myself available to the parties to see what we can get accomplished tomorrow. In all the things we do, let's not just turn our brains off on this and tomorrow we have to start fresh. Where could our next move be tomorrow? Look at what if. What if I did this? What would you say? What if I did this? Could you do that? Live in the question of what if so that we can continue to narrow down. By narrowing down, getting agreements, we better serve the city of Beaumont. Any questions for me? Nine o'clock?
Yes, sir.
Same bat time, same bat cave. If you need to caucus with your parties, if possible, do it before 9 o'clock. That's just a personal preference.
Yes, sir.
Before we adjourn, can I have just 1 second with my, thank you. Okay, I'm good.
If the parties need me, I've given my cell phone number for a reason. If you want to run something by me or no agreements, run something by me, just give me a call.
Yes, the meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you.